go away. I'll relish any time you'll stay with me, my dear.
Hey, Jeff, what are you doing? What is that in your hands?
Cherry bomb.
A cherry bomb? Where'd you get a cherry bomb?
I don't know. I don't want to tell you, but I'm going to go blow up a mailbox.
Jeff, that's a federal offense.
Should I use the black cat?
You got black cats, too?
Yeah.
Boy, what else you got there in your little bag? Are those Archie comics?
Maybe.
Man, you are in a really childish mood, aren't you?
I mean, I guess. Is that bad?
No, in fact, I don't ever want you to stop being childish.
Mom and Dad do.
Turn that radio dial.
What you talking about, Wood?
It's time for the most Gen X podcast there is.
Real tomato ketchup in it?
Not even close, right?
You found it.
Never been so happy in my whole life.
It's just Jeff and the Dazzlingly Uncool.
Don't mess with the bull, young man. You'll get the horns.
Those aren't pillows.
And now, it's just Jeff.
You know, Rock, it's been an interesting week, to say the least, and I'm going to actually ask you to take a different role on this particular podcast.
Okay, what do you mean?
Well, give me about 2 minutes, and you'll see. But one of the things that happened this week was, we lost a friend, a fellow classmate named Lance Reynolds. And, it really just started jogging back memories of growing up. And it just really kind of made me think that, right now, like on Facebook, everyone's divided. If you like Trump, unfriend me. If you like this guy, unfriend me. But you know what? When I saw Lisa actually post something about Lance, there were over 400 responses. And those responses, they consisted of people that don't like each other now on Facebook. But when all is said and done, they're friends. We're friends.
That's right.
We let everything get to us. And one of the things I think we need to go back to right now, we need Childish Things. We need to go back and take a look at who we are and realize, man, chew some bubble gum. Go buy a baseball. But anyway, I want to play a song right now that you were part of. It's called Childish Things, and let's play it right now, and we'll come back when it's done.
Of our misspent youth, unspoken middle school vows that stood up as proof. Sprinting across Augusta with barefoot grace, laughing through the black against the sprinklers' jagged spray. From a flattened hilltop, we stood watch as the season slipped away. We'd huddle next morning, book bags and paper sacks, winding past colonials and over rusted railroad tracks, clinging to our books, dodging disapproving looks. Lord of the Flies at lunchtime under rolling Texas skies, all breathless courage, sweat drenched and unrepentant cries. When I came to be a man, I put all those childish things away. But take them all together, they add up to roughly who I am today. And I thank God for childish things. Each night I stop and pray. Got a penny in my pocket for every sweet gumball I took off of the grass. I spent it all on candy, cigarettes, and baseball cards. A fortune never meant to last. Crammed on bus 82 across a bridge lost at times, gazing lazily past azaleas, oak trees stretched across the sky. The skateboard park at dusk, bloodied elbows, battered knees. Sprawling across a stretch of burnout St. Augustine, tracing ghostly steps back home, over memories left unseen. When I came to be a man, I put all those childish things away. But take them all together, they add up to roughly who I am today. And I thank God for childish things each night I stop and pray. When I came to be a man, I put all those childish things away. But I thank God for childish things each night I stop and pray. Each night I stop and pray. Each night I stop and pray.
Is that not a great song? I mean, if you don't like that song, you might have something wrong with you. But it's one of my favorite songs, and I got the two guys that wrote this song together. One is Rocky, our producer. He hasn't achieved superstardom yet to be considered a co-host, and the other is Scott Donehoo, one of his best friends, one of the great guys. And I just want to first of all say hi. Say thanks for being here, and just kind of tell me your inspiration behind this.
Hi, Jeff.
Hey, Jeff. Great to be here, man. Big fan of the show. Thanks for having me on.
Aw. Yeah, so the inspiration belongs to Scott. So because Scott was the lyricist on this, and I'll tell you a little bit how that came about, but I'm going to just pitch it over to you, Scott, to say what was the inspiration for this?
Yeah, absolutely. Just growing up as a kid in Conroe, living in River Plantation, right? So it's a shared experience for all of us, for all three of us at least. And I'm not sure if you want me to go into detail on the song itself, or whether you want me to kind of go into the background on the.
Yeah, I think that.
Came to be.
Well, so the inspiration was growing up, right? And I think you hit that so well. And just a little bit of background, like Scott and I have known each other forever, and we were roommates in college, but we were talking one time, and I had started just kind of doing some music for fun, and he kind of said, "Man, I'm a little jealous that you've got this hobby that you're enjoying so much. I got to find a hobby." And I kind of reminded him that growing up, he introduced me to a ton of music that I would not have otherwise discovered probably, but he was always really good with lyrics, and I was always pretty bad about even noticing lyrics. He would point lyrics out to me, and I'd be like, "Oh yeah, that's pretty cool." So I just told him, I'm like, "Have you ever thought about writing some lyrics?" And he said that he'd kind of thought about it. I said, "Well, if you ever do, send them to me, and maybe I can write some music, and we can collaborate on a song." And I think it was, it wasn't very long after, a few days, a week maybe, that he sent me 3 songs. This was one of them. And I think we ended up recording all 3 of them on our little EP that we did called Stone Mountain Drive, which is the name of the street that we all grew up on. But yeah, so it was pretty amazing. It's like, where was this? So now we've got our lyricist.
Yeah, no, it was a great collaboration, and just having grown up down the street from Rocky, a couple of golf course holes away on Augusta from him, made it more of a shared experience. It just was something where I knew he would probably be able to, it would resonate with him, the words in it, even though they were kind of based on my experience, my recollection of things from that time. And as we went through the writing process, kind of revamping, editing, and tweaking here and there, and adding some stuff in. That's essentially what happened. So it started out as a bunch of stuff that I remembered and some phrases, some experiences, and then worked through to kind of tell the story that was about mostly my childhood, and also his, and but then I also think can be translated to anybody that has grown up, whether Texas or wherever.
I agree with that 100%.
Me too.
You can just tell the words aren't thrown together. They're heartfelt, and what you just said about Texas memories. First of all, one thing we're doing is we're starting to put our podcasts on YouTube. Not really showing us talking yet. They're pretty much audio, but on this particular one, we're going to show the video to this song, which is just so fun, and it shows Texas memories, like you said. But I just feel like it's almost insert picture here with wherever you grew up, and it hits every generation. Like I could see my dad inserting photos here, or our kids inserting photos here, and again, no matter where you grew up, we all had ragtag baseball team pictures of businesses that are no longer there, awkward class photos. And I just think that anyone that watches this video I just think it'll bring up a lot of memories for wherever you grew up. And one thing I'd like to do is kind of break down the words and get your feelings on some of the words. And I'd like to give my 2 cents on some of the words. And, let's be funny. Let's have fun.
All right.
So it starts off, oh, I bored her with the tales of my misspent youth, which kind of makes me think, you're kind of telling your wife or girlfriend about this. And then unspoken middle school vows that stood as proof. Now, what did that mean to you?
Yeah, well, actually, both of those lines were directly from something I can recall. One of them, the Misspent Youth, was you guys will remember Rob Sarton, perhaps his dad, Denny Sarton. I got Misspent Youth from him. I just remember him saying once about kids and video games, Misspent Youth, and that line just stuck with me. I just thought that was a clever turn of phrase. So,
Jeff, I just learned that for the first time.
Okay.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I love that.
Yeah, so he was watching people play video games, and he said, yeah, it's Misspent Youth. So anyway, that's where that comes from. Middle school vows, what I was thinking of there is I literally did become a blood brother with a guy named Trenton Brothers. He was a soccer friend of mine, and we went to intermediate school together there at Reeves, and we hung out one day and had a very, very, if I recall, dull pocket knife, and we decided to become blood brothers. Kind of sawed our way into our thumbs and pressed them together and became blood brothers. So that's a middle school vow for you.
That's a commitment. When I heard this vows, obviously sometimes I think of wedding vows or whatnot. And the first thing I thought of is schoolyard vows that stand up as proof was when, if you liked a girl, you tried to get on their kickball team, right? That's how you would show interest in the girl, right? I want to be on her kickball team, or maybe against her.
As I recall, you carried that on forward all the way into college. Isn't that how you met Kyla?
We're not going to talk about how I met Kyla, but it didn't involve kickball.
Okay.
Anyway. So then it goes on to say, sprinting across Augusta with barefoot grace, laughing through the black against the sprinkler's jagged spray. Now, Augusta, like you just mentioned, Scott, earlier, was the name of the golf course that we grew up on. So to us, Augusta means playing on the golf course, correct?
Yeah, the thing on Augusta, I did so much on that golf course other than play golf. I was, at best ever a bogey golfer, I think, and I played a lot. Had the golf course at my immediate disposal, but we were out there playing football, we were out there playing baseball, we were on the tee box, we had a game on the tee box we played. It was an escape route for me at times. We would do stuff on the the street. We would throw water balloons at cars on the street,
Right.
run through the vacant lot right next to my house, and escape onto Augusta. So
Nice.
it represented a lot of different things.
You
It
know,
really
Jeff
did.
and I have talked before about just how strong of a memory we have, talking about bare feet, but just the feeling of walking across your St. Augustine grass in your backyard and then first kind of stepping out onto that first cut of the rough and then onto the fairway, and just how you can just imagine that feeling of that grass on your bare feet so
It's
vividly
kind of like
still.
Field of Dreams. You walked into.
Yes.
Now the next line talks about the sprinkler's jagged spray, and I want to just throw in real quick here. That could be universal in that everyone ran through the fan sprinkler. Kids in other cities, I guess New York,
Exactly.
ran through fire hydrants. But what I remember about that jagged spray was they plugged those things in, and they had some power. And if you were dared to run through like the very front of that, man, it would draw blood.
It would take some skin off. Yeah.
It was powerful. We had one directly across from us on the tee box, and the thing I remember the most about it was our dog would just leap up at it. It would just bite at the spray. I mean, really, really close to the source. So as you're calling out, she was probably losing fur in the process. But she would go crazy when that thing would come on, and we'd jump over it and around it, and never get brave enough to put our faces right up next to the stream. That thing was shooting about 100 feet.
Oh, if you put your
had some
face up to
wisdom.
it, yeah.
You had some wisdom in spite of the blunt pocket knife story.
Very little wisdom. Yeah, I'm sure I learned that one from experience.
So now we get to, I'm not going to cover every one. Flattened hilltops, we huddled the next morning, book bags and paper sacks, winding past colonials and rusted railroad tracks. I think just, even if you weren't watching the video, which I hope you are, man, you can just imagine the words that you write there. But then I loved clinging to our books, dodging disapproving looks. Now, I know I dodged a lot of disapproving looks from teachers, but I probably wasn't clinging to my books. but like what are some of your memories of like some of the teachers growing up? And I mean, kind of like the middle school ones and with the pictures that are shown.
Yeah, no, the ones I remember were mostly from junior high. So I'm thinking Travis.
Yeah.
And I had a teacher, and I think it was history, or maybe a science, Miss Smith, but we called her Miss Smitha.
Yeah.
You guys remember Miss Smitha?
Yeah, I remember Miss Smith.
Okay, I remember Mr. Thurston. I know he was science.
We've talked about him before.
Yeah, I think you have. And I can't come up with the name, but the one that is most resonant from a story perspective was one of my, I think, history teachers. And I think it was Mr. I want to say von Furstenberg, but I could be completely wrong.
Von Rosenberg. Von Rosenberg.
You got it. Thank you. Yeah, the eraser thrower.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds like the Red Baron.
Yeah, that was great. You would be in the room, and then it would start getting quiet, except for the one student who was talking to somebody else, and then you would see Dr. Mr. von Rosenberg go over to his chalkboard, gently grab an eraser, and just lob it right into the desk of the person who was talking.
Deadly accurate.
Very, very accurate. And I want to say we had Mark Price, Holly Misaki in that classroom. I remember those two specifically. And one day we arranged to have him go get called to the office. So he gets called to the office through the PA system or something. He disappears. He tells us to study. And he's gone for a few minutes. And in the interim, we've got all these erasers that everybody has somehow gotten an eraser in their hand. He walks back through the door, and he looks at Mark Price, I think it was, and he says, "You turkey," because I guess he figured out that Mark had gotten him summoned down there. And right at that moment, we all hummed our erasers at him.
Brilliant.
That's awesome.
Now, did he understand? Did he enjoy it as a practical joke?
I don't recall the repercussions being too significant. I think we came out of it all right.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, I think a man who throws an eraser at you, I think he has a sense of humor.
I think
he
so.
did.
I think, especially when all of y'all do it at the same time. One of the pictures that's in your video, Rocky, has a teacher named Mr. Gilliam.
Yeah.
And I didn't notice that until I was watching the other day. And it's y'all's class. Y'all were a grade above me. But Shoemaker and I had Mr. Gilliam, and I'm pretty sure that he demanded a raise after that year because we put him through the test.
Yeah,
We
I
put
bet.
Mr. Gilliam through the test. But
I remember one particular Mr. Gilliam story where didn't you guys catch him like cutting one in the middle of class or something like that? You couldn't stop laughing or
well,
something
we were
like that?
hiding under his desk thinking we were being, and I think he just let us know that's not the place to hide.
Very nice.
And I mean, I got to tip my hat to the man for that, right?
Yeah,
So-
on demand.
But anyway, then it goes on to say Lord of the Flies at lunchtime under rolling Texas skies. And anytime you throw the word Texas into anything, especially rolling Texas skies, that just, I personally love Texas. And you can ask all of my Michigan friends. They said all I used to talk about was Texas. In fact, one of my good friends said I always used to talk about the food in Texas.
Yeah.
So, and Lord of the Flies, what is that?
So, well,
I'm teasing you, but I probably never read it. But so yeah, it was that. Did that have a special meaning to you?
well, just the utter chaos that was the kids living in the Golding novel Lord of the Flies.
Yeah.
It just what I conjured up was just the idea of recess at Armstrong Elementary, that giant field outside that school. Pretty
Yeah.
much all dirt. Just, you have your 15 or 20 minutes between classes. You're out there running around, just playing tetherball, playing whatever you're playing, and just making yourself a sweaty mess, trying not to, get yourself killed before you then kind of reconvene, go back into
Right.
school. That's
brings
the thing
up-
I think of.
To me, it brings up memories of that field, that just dirt field that we used to play sports on at Reeves Intermediate School.
Kind of the back 40.
Yeah, the back
Yeah.
40.
Yeah, it was like
the-
way back there.
And you remember like the way the water would drain, it would cut these ravines in it.
Yeah.
So it was like, it wasn't a smooth surface at all, but we would play our, Mr. Williams would divide us up into teams, right? You had like team 1 through team 6, and you'd split that ruddy field into, a couple of different football fields, and there'd be 3 games going on there.
Yeah.
That's where I think of kind of Lord of the Flies, because there was definitely a pecking order, and there was also definitely kind of loyalties between teams that would sometimes like, you weren't careful, you were piggy out there.
Yeah. Never want to be piggy.
Yeah.
And then that verse ends up all breathless courage, sweat drenched, and unrepentant cries. Kind of like you just said, Rock. I mean, you're sweat drenched out there, Scott. You were saying at Armstrong, and the unrepentant cries is when you twisted your ankle in a ravine. And then, of course, the refrain, when I came to be a man, I put all those childish things away, put them all together. They add up to who I am today. But I thank God for childish things. Each night I stop and pray. And what I think right now is, with all the turmoil going on in the country right now, I think we need to get back to childish things. I think we need to go buy a piece of candy and just enjoy life. And we're going to get to the second verse of this song right after this. And we're back. So, riding black and yellow thunder like a slingshot through space. It's a wild ride, my shoes untied, some dirt on my face. We all had black and yellow thunder, man. Everyone had a bike that they named. That was just so cool.
So you actually had black and yellow thunder. I wrote that line because I was always really jealous of your Huffy Pro Thunder that you had. And we used to ride that, and I think we've talked about before how we'd go jump kind of the little culverts along the street, where all the houses had, like, the front yards had ditches, right? So the driveways and the walkways would create like these little, ramps. So that's what that was. And then just, we were always dirty and, your shoes on. To me, that was just like the freedom kind of being young.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't have a black and yellow Thunder. I did have a white 3-speed with a red, white, and blue banana seat. So, and I would pretend it was like a black and yellow Thunder, and I'd go looking for those culverts and those ditches to create a ramp on. And I remember once the seat failed me while I was midair on one of those. I was flying up in the air and I think it was actually off of a homemade ramp. and the seat just detached from the frame.
Oh.
And I had to fling the bike in front of me and bail. So.
Oh, wow.
That was
It's a good thing you had a helmet on.
Yeah.
It's a good thing you were wearing your helmet.
Yeah, I'm sure I was wearing a helmet back then, right?
Oh my gosh, dude, that could have really been bad.
Yeah, that was my wild ride. Oh, actually, here's a better one. Coming down, you guys can picture 9 Augusta, coming down 9 Augusta back toward the clubhouse, riding the bike down the cart path, and completely lost control. And there was a point where the water crossing, the little creek that ran right into the hole, where it was like a smooth transition. You could literally go right into it. And I was going so fast, I didn't have time to turn and stay on the path. So I basically just went right into the water, and I just like a skipping stone going across it. It was ridiculous because it wasn't a wipeout. I just like ended up riding right across the stones in the water for about 50 feet and just came to a stop in the middle of the ditch.
No way.
I imagine if like a parent across the fairway would have seen that, they'd have been like, "What the hell was that?" How did
Man, I can
that?
just totally picture that.
Yeah.
Oh, 9 Augusta, it's like you went up the hill, and then you go hard down, and then right back up,
hard back
and then
up,
hard
and
back
hard
down
again.
Yeah. A little too much momentum on the hard back down on the last one there, but
you could get yourself in trouble if you didn't want to pedal on the way down.
The only time you could get yourself in more trouble than riding your bike on that is when you got to be old enough to drive the golf cart by yourself.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
You could definitely get a little too aggressive with that and end up in a ditch. That never happened.
Or a lake.
Yeah.
So I think, and here it is another one of my favorite lines, and it's I've got a penny in my pocket for every sweet gum ball I took off of the grass. I spent it all on candy, cigarettes, and baseball cards. A fortune never meant to last, and we've all had baseball cards that would be worth so much money today, but we didn't buy them to last. We bought them to play with.
That's right. And do you remember Pops telling us he'd give us a penny if we, he wanted the sweet gum balls picked up off the yard. He said he'd give us a penny for each one we picked up, and it ended up costing him a lot more than he expected.
Well, we had that vacant lot next door.
I think we went to the vacant lot. We went next door.
Yeah.
He was like, "Wait, I didn't agree to pay to have the Moore's yard cleared off here, But
yeah, and they didn't know they were giving us a penny per each too.
Exactly, but we had hundreds of them, so I think it ended up costing him $6 or $7 probably.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And then we probably took it back to the back store, Yeah. You remember? I think everybody probably had some version of like a little convenience store that was close enough that you could get to once you were allowed to ride your bike.
Yeah.
Right? And we could ride to that little back store.
That's a pretty good distance, but you could get there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, you talk about crossing generations. The kids today will never know what candy cigarettes were, and the people before us, they smoke cigarettes.
Yeah.
It went from our parents smoking cigarettes as a youth to us having candy cigarettes to now the kids today pretending chalk is, they
vape.
You're right. They vape. Oh man. But I mean, again, just the wording of this and, it's just kind of cool. And now when it talks about crammed on bus 82 across a bridge lost in time, a bridge lost in time means we had this bridge that would somehow or would sometimes be washed away by the floods that we had. But I want to talk about bus memories, man. I love the bus.
Yeah. Well, we had friendly debate, Rock, on this one. In terms of the bus number. I had number 82 frozen in my mind. That number didn't resonate with you, and so we actually started polling people to see who remembers the bus numbers. And I think we decided there were probably an equal number who remembered both, but. We ended up going with 82.
I think 82. I totally believe you because somebody else said 82 also, and I think that might have been maybe that was Armstrong or something because elementary school because I didn't get there till intermediate, but I vividly remember a bus 13 and a bus 67, and one was like for the elementary or the middle school or the intermediate school, and the other one was for the junior high. But I can remember feeling pretty savvy because, you learned, like, they were different. One of them was, they were different models of buses, and they had a different grill in the front. So eventually I learned to, like, you see the bus come and you're like, oh, that's 67. That's not 50.
That's so true.
I felt pretty cool when I realized that.
You remember we would be waiting for the bus sometimes, and it would be kind of foggy.
Yeah.
And whenever it would be like 2 stops away from us, you could see the red lights. It was like Jawas.
We talked about the Jawas. Yeah. Yeah.
That
I don't
was
know about you
always
guys,
cool.
but I remember just I bus stopped over at right across from David White's house, so I had to walk around the circle that I lived on, and we waited at David White's house, and it felt like we were getting there maybe a half hour before the bus came, and we were just playing football in his front yard, and their football and stuff like that until they showed up. I'm sure we were an absolute wreck even before we boarded the bus.
Oh, we reeked.
Oh, absolutely. We walked down the street just a little bit in front of Greg Thomas's house. And we would wait right there. There was this little kind of like a little, I guess it was a sewer, but it was like a little sewer thing, a little cement that you could look in. There was a little bit of water in there, and there were minnows in there.
Yeah.
And we would throw pebbles at the minnows while we were waiting.
I remember once, I think it was like one of the last days of school for a particular school year, and we really liked this particular bus driver. And I was supposed to be bringing a present that I guess a handful of us were going to give to her at the very end. And I'd forgotten it. So we're on the way to school. I board the bus, and I asked the bus driver, can I run back to the house and grab it? And at this point, it's just down the street, like 3 houses away. She's like, okay, hurry up. And I just remember hauling butt down the street and cutting into the ditch toward my house and just face planting. And we were the last. I was the last pickup on the entire route, so the entire bus was filled with people. Yeah, so I had a full audience. I mean, luckily then we didn't have cell phones to catch it on video, or it would be forever memorialized on TikTok and so forth. But that was kind of in my head as I was coming up with the Bus 82 memory.
Do you remember what the gift was?
It was, I think, a whistle. I think we were getting her like a new whistle, which was emblematic of, hey, blow the whistle, because she was always trying to get us to be quiet.
Right.
In fact, I think this is the same one, like before a holiday, in order, like the last day of the semester or the year, in order to get everybody to be quiet, she said, okay, I'm going to give a baseball to whoever is best behaved on this ride. And it was genius because everyone was really pretty calm and quiet the entire time. And I think she probably strategized it to where she gave it to the very last person she dropped off, which was me, because I lived at the very back of the neighborhood.
Nice.
Awesome.
Well played.
I think her name was Mrs. Walton.
I also remember Lois.
Lois?
And I do remember
Wasn't
Mrs.
Lois
Walton. No, I don't think so, unless he had long hair. So, do you remember like that rear view mirror on the bus that, like, if you even made a sound, they would just look up in it, and it would somehow they looked at you.
Disapproving looks.
The disapproving looks. It was like that Kennedy picture at Nanny and Papa's house. No matter where you moved in the room, man, those eyes just looked at you.
That was our grandparents. They had a portrait in their guest bedroom of John F. Kennedy and Jackie. And it would always freak us out because, like Jeff said, no matter where you were, they were looking at you.
I was convinced the same thing of the Farrah Fawcett poster I had in my room.
Now, that wouldn't have been so bad.
I was always looking at her.
Right.
Do you know, Jeff, do you remember whose poster I had up in my room?
Tanya Roberts.
Tanya Roberts, and we just lost her this week.
But I thought I heard we didn't.
I heard we lost her, then we didn't. So
I heard the same thing.
We lost her, then we didn't, then we did.
Oh,
okay.
sorry to hear that.
Yeah. She would watch Beastmaster with Mark Singer. It's kind of a Conan the Barbarian light, but better. And there's a very good scene with Miss Tanya Roberts.
Yeah, I remember you liked that movie because you liked it for Mark Singer, just kind of like you liked the Playboys for the articles.
I love the articles. Yeah. Now here's a memory that I have about the bus. What could be done that would make the bus driver a rock star?
What could be done? Trying to tip it?
No. There was something. Do you remember when you would get to the sales office? Everyone's like, straight.
Which direction you went? Yeah, that's a fork in the road.
And if they decide, if she, it was maybe once every 3 weeks, boy, she'd go straight, and that bus was like, yeah,
I get to get off a little sooner.
Yes, I mean, she was like a rock star. Straight. Yeah.
That's
I
hilarious.
don't know. Were you guys on the bus the time that something was going wrong? There was a really bizarre noise, and the bus driver was like, "I don't trust this. Everybody off!" And she like unloaded us right before y'all's street, actually, and everyone else had to walk the rest of the way home.
What?
No.
Yeah, I remember that. I don't think there's anything really dramatically wrong with the vehicle, but it was apparently making some bad noise. Maybe she thought something was smoking, maybe under the hood. Who knows?
She was
And,
just ready to get home.
Yeah, maybe she was just in a hurry to get
She
home.
wanted to go try out her new whistle.
Exactly right. You can't blame her.
And there's a good chance it was one of the kids from Holly Springs who was smoking.
Hey, go easy on Holly Springs. My cousins lived out there. I spent a lot of
That was
time
a
in
rough
Holly Springs.
neighborhood, though. That was a
Yeah.
rough neighborhood.
Yeah, they had some tough characters there.
In fact, that's what I think of when I think of the dodging, disapproving looks, is getting on that bus and just walking, hoping the Holly Springs crowd didn't notice you.
Because they picked him up right before we got picked up.
Yeah.
I remember one particular individual there, and if we're allowed to use names, I'll be happy to. That I
Sure.
was always Greg Sifferman. Always worried that he would be kind of just there whenever I would either get off the bus or go to the vacant lot, hanging out playing, whatever. I was always worried about him. And one day I'm maybe 5 houses away from home, from the safety of home, and some other kid says, "Hey, Sifferman's looking for you." I'm like, "Oh yeah, really?" And I'm like, he was nowhere in my field of view, so I feel like I'm okay. Well, I pivot and turn around, and there he is, and I'm like, I kind of immediately in my head judging the distance between him and my house and whether I've got the speed to get there. So I decided to test my wheels, and I don't quite get there. He tackles me in someone's yard a couple houses away, and just at that very moment, my dad, who's a big jogger, is starting to jog, and he's just, he's on the road and he's just trotting by, and like it means nothing at all to him. He's like, "Hey Scott, I think dinner's about ready," and then he just keeps on jogging. And Zimmerman kind of gets up. He takes that as his cue to leave me alone, and I'm sure my dad did it intentionally. He probably knew I was about to get my butt kicked, but didn't want to make a big deal out of it. But,
let it play out. That's a pretty cool move right there.
That is a cool move. I could just see you on the bus when you saw Sifferman. It's like a beautiful mind. You've got all these little figures going off in your head, like triangles and fractions. Like, okay, if I hit it hard right here, I think I can beat him.
I can beat it. The distance, I'm calculating the tangent, the cosine of the distances here.
Right.
Jeff and I have talked before. First of all, we should say, so Sifferman is no longer with us. I don't know if you knew that.
Did not. All right.
But he was actually a pretty nice kid, and our mom always used to say that, like, he's so polite and all that. So, but anyway, Jeff and I have joked before about how people would think we made that up. Like, if you were going to write a movie about kind of the dreaded neighborhood bully, Sifferman is just like the perfect name.
Great name
right?
for it, yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's Sifferman.
But he had henchmen.
Well, he had a lot of henchmen. Your Watsons, your Earthmans, your Grover
The
Dills.
Booper brothers.
Yeah.
I don't know about you guys, but when you would go to a different part of River Plantation, different area, hang out with a different friend, like for me it was Haggerty up near the clubhouse, you'd encounter a whole different set of bullies that you'd have to contend with.
He had to deal with McAfee.
Oh,
Yeah, that sounds right. And he also had to deal with somebody from Mosswood Springs. I can't remember the name.
Oh man, that's
Curtis maybe, something like that.
That's a
And
whole different level.
Exactly. That was trouble. And I remember getting we were fishing on I think it was one of the Charleston lakes, one of the lakes on one of the holes in Charleston, and I got thrown into the lake by one of that area's bullies. So they're all over, just depending on what
They were all over.
Isn't that crazy how, now if any of them are listening to our podcast, they're all fathers now and, probably pillars of the community.
We're so sorry. Please don't hurt us.
I know. That is so funny. But then anyway, so it goes on to talk about the skateboard park at dusk and battered knees. And, It's just the word dusk. We were able to play at dusk. That's when it was time for us to come home. Dusk.
Yeah, that's right.
We didn't have cell phones that they'd call. It was dusk.
Well, everybody always says like they remember like when the street lights came on. That's when they were supposed to come home. I don't really remember having that, but yeah, dusk sounds about right.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, in a skateboard park, Rocky asked about the skateboard park. He's like, I don't remember a skateboard park where we grew up. And I'm like, well, I was taking a little artistic license there, and essentially, if you think about the spot back behind the swimming pool and the tennis courts, there's like a basketball court there, right? You know, a slab of concrete. And for maybe a year or two stretch, they had a pretty decent skateboard ramp there. And so we would go there, and then at one point I convinced my dad to build one, and so I had one in the driveway as well, and was inspired partially also by the Burt Reynolds movie Hooper. I don't know if you guys remember.
Jan Michael Vincent.
Yeah, Jan Michael Vincent. Exactly.
He was the young up-and-comer stuntman.
The rocket car
Hooper
and all that. Yeah. So Paul Haggerty and I, we spent I think a summer trying to recreate very amateurish stunts based on what we had seen in Hooper, and managed not to break any bones. But
we did the same dang thing. Me, and Hicks, Jeff. We came up with some stunts and tried to make a little movie.
Yeah. We were Jackass before Jackass. only we knew what limit to push, right?
That's right.
We didn't make a movie, but I remember we had like a little photo album of us doing different stuff, like doing flips and ramping our bikes and jumping off the top of the garage, stuff like that.
Wait,
I remember making
on your bikes, did you?
Say again?
You didn't do flips on your bikes, did you?
No. Just like flips. Yeah, no, like just flips onto the ground, just stuff like that.
Yeah.
Just to get the action shot. It looked cool if you framed it well enough. Of course, that's
awesome.
You couldn't take 100 shots to get it right. You pretty much had to roll.
Right.
You get 12 shots to get it right.
I remember coming up with a choreographed bike stunt routine before we moved to River Plantation. So this was when we lived down on 1960. But I remember we made our parents come out and watch, and that had to be just painful because I had just gone and seen the Blue Angels, right?
Yeah.
They were at like an air show down in Houston or something. So the climax of the whole show was two of us were driving along on the road in formation, right? Mm-hmm. A little, one just a little bit behind the other, and then we both kind of split off on the road into different driveways on either side of the street, went up, turned around in the driveway, came back, and ended up in formation again.
Brilliant.
Going down it was, in my mind, it was something.
Yeah.
And I remember the parents, maybe doing a little golf clap or something, but that had to be
go inside
painful.
now?
Yeah, exactly. And I remember also there was, the Blue Angels would fly right at each other, and then they'd both bank and just go belly to belly.
Right.
It looked like they were about 6 inches away from each other. So we did one of those things where we're going right at each other, and at the very end, we just kind of turn a little bit and miss each other by probably 3 feet, but felt like 6 inches.
Yeah, right.
That definitely had the possibility for disaster there if you didn't have your timing down.
I mean, we committed to the training. I mean, that was not the first time that we pulled off the stunt. I
think the craziest thing that I did with any sort of wheeled vehicle, and I know Toby did this too, is we used to get the wagon, it was like the red wagon or whatever you call it, and we would get at the top of our hill at the driveway, and we would try to make the turn.
Try to steer
it. And you had to go up on that hill. You had to go up on that grass hill to try to make the turn into the,
that was steep.
Yeah.
And that was a sharp turn.
It was a sharp turn. It was, it was kind of scary at times, but I'm not sure any of us ever really made it. But I don't remember any broken bones, so I don't know.
It's a bonus.
So anyway, it goes on to talk about a sprawling patch of burnt-out Augustine, which means if you
St. Augustine.
If you don't water it, it's going to get burned, or if you play baseball in it, it's gonna create a lot of dirt spots that Fred really enjoyed.
Yeah, digging up right where home plate was. You'd have a big bare spot, worn out, and he loved that.
And then it goes on to say, tracing ghostly steps back home over memories left unseen. And that is cool because we had no idea we were making memories, but by God, we were.
Yeah,
Indeed.
absolutely. I mean, for me, that was a couple of things. I mean, in a literal sense, I remember coming back from the same place a lot of times, just walking back. And in fact, I remember walking back from the swimming pool on the hot asphalt, then like walking on my towel, like throwing it on the ground and walking ahead so my feet would not burn off. That was in my head. But yeah, like you mentioned, Jeff, it's a good metaphor for nostalgia.
It really is.
Yeah.
Well, guys, I've enjoyed the heck out of this, and I'm so glad both of y'all were able to come on because this song is just, I listen to it a lot, and now that we broke it up, I want everyone to watch it after learning and listen to us break down the words and put your own memories in those with these words, and I think you're going to come out of this with a smile on your face. But anyway, guys, I appreciate it.
Thanks, Jeff.
Happy to do it. Enjoyed it very much. Thanks for having me on. Keep doing the great work.
Appreciate it, guys.
It's time for closing thoughts with Jeff. And now, here's Jeff.
I've occasionally suggested for our listeners to share our podcast with others or even leave a comment pertaining to certain episodes. But this week I'm actually going to ask that you please do so. Not because of anything I've done special. Rather, I think during these trying times, everyone could benefit from listening to Childish Things and remembering fond memories of their own childhood. I would encourage telling your family and friends about the YouTube version so they can not only listen to the song, but see the video. In fact, I'd love to hear about some of your cherished memories by leaving comments. Look, every day we wake up and have to play adult. We have to pay bills, fight traffic, deal with long lines at the grocery store, etc. But I know we all remember a time when our biggest worries involved deciding between kickball or tag. We can't predict the future, but the past will never change, and no one can take away the fond memories of our youth. And you shouldn't be finished making these memories. And the way to do this is by never letting yourself lose the desire to continue enjoying childish things. Until next time, I gotta go. I hear the ice cream truck rounding the corner.
Thank you for listening to the Just Jeff and the Dazzlingly Uncool Podcast. Check back every Thursday for new episodes. If there's a topic you think we should discuss on the podcast, leave us a comment or a message and we'll do our best to get to it. Check us out on Facebook and join our group called Growing Up 70s and 80s Texas Style. Didn't grow up in the 70s or the 80s? No problem. Didn't grow up in Texas? No problem. We still want you in the group and as part of the discussion. Hey, do you think you yourself may be dazzlingly uncool? Well, if you found your way to our podcast, chances are pretty good, or at least that you will be one day. Wear that title with pride. To find out more, check out www.rockysealmusic.com.